Today's lesson is called Eureka! Famous light bulb moments in science. Hello everyone, my name is Jeff.
I am Roger. Today we're talking about scientific discoveries. And, of course, a lot of times scientists are looking for solutions to problems, and they manage to find them because they're actually looking for them. But sometimes scientists discover things by accident, and that's what a eureka moment is. My goodness, eureka, I have found it. I discovered this thing completely by accident.
I found it. I have discovered it. Eureka, the light bulb has come on. Yes, we're not talking about the invention of the light bulb. No one said, Eureka, I'm going to make the first light bulb. No, Thomas Edison did not say this. And no, we're not talking about the discovery of the light bulb. We're talking about these famous moments in science where people have had really good ideas or flashes of inspiration that led to famous inventions or concepts or ideas. Anyways, folks, with that, it is time for us to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll start reading from our article on Eureka moments.
Eureka! Famous light bulb moments in science. It's a famous story. Archimedes, a Greek mathematician who lived in the 3rd century BC, took a bath. As he got in the tub, water splashed out. Archimedes realized he had discovered how to measure the volume of an object of any shape. He leapt out of the tub and ran naked through the streets, shouting, Eureka, which means, I found it.
大家好，第一部分我们看到的单字是名词 mathematician， 指数学家。例如 Alan Turing was a British mathematician who came up with the first computer. 艾伦·图灵是想出世界上第一台电脑的英国数学家。补充与 mathematician 相关的单字，名词 mathematics, M-A-T-H-E-M-A-T-I-C-S, mathematics 指数学，时常会使用 math 来简写，像是 Martin has had a hard time on numbers, so mathematics is the subject he hates the most at school. Martin 对数字一窍不通，所以数学是他在学校最讨厌的科目。
Okay, in the first paragraph here, it begins by saying it's a famous story. Maybe you've heard this story before. Archimedes, a Greek mathematician who lived in the 3rd century BC, took a bath. So that's how we begin this story. It's probably a story you've heard about. We're going back, my goodness, hundreds of years to the 3rd century BC. But in any case here, this is a Greek mathematician, which is a person who knows a lot of stuff about mathematics. His name again was Archimedes, and he lived in the 3rd century BC, and he took a bath, which means he filled a tub full of water, and he was going to sit in the water in order to clean his body.
Yes, but we're not telling you the whole story. Actually, in the version of this story that I heard, Archimedes' wife said, Archimedes, you need to take a bath, okay? 1, because he was kind of dirty, but 2, he was dirty because he had been working on this idea nonstop for a very long time. Apparently, the king came to Archimedes and said, you're a smart guy, you're a brilliant mathematician, you have to solve this problem for me. How do I know if someone has given me a gift that's made of pure gold or not? How do I know the difference, or how can I tell the difference between fake gold and real gold? And Archimedes thought, uh-oh, I better do this. The king is a powerful guy. I better work hard and figure this out. And he worked and worked and worked, and nothing happened. He got nowhere. There were no light bulb moments. But then, yes, his wife famously said, Archimedes, you're going nuts. You need to take a bath and you need to focus and relax. And yes, as he got in the tub, something happened, okay? As he got into the tub, water splashed out, or he noticed that the level of the water rose, okay? He realized that when he got to the tub, that his body okay, the volume that his body represented, displaced an equal amount of water. And that was the eureka moment. Archimedes realized he had discovered how to measure the volume of an object of any shape. So here you could have a crown that's very intricate. You don't need to worry about measuring its volume in a fancy way. Just go ahead and put it in some water and figure out how much water is displaced, and you know the volume of that crown. Further, if you have a real piece of gold, you know how big, and you know how big that piece of gold is. You know what its density is going to be, its weight per unit volume. So moving forward, you can tell whether or not if someone has given you a real gold trinket or gift or not. That is the idea behind all of this.
Indeed. So he had discovered in this particular case how to measure the volume of any object. Okay, so for example, if I have a cube in my hand, well, I know how to find the volume. You just multiply the three sides of the cube, and you get your volume there. I think he also discovered how to calculate the volume of a cylinder. And of course, if you want to find out the volume of a cylinder, you need to know the ratio of the circumference with the radius. I think that's actually pi, right? And so he's the one who discovered all that kind of stuff. I'm not sure what that has to do with taking a bath, though.
Remember, he's getting into the bath, okay, and the water, it's at a certain level. When he gets in, that water rises, okay, so you know the amount of displacement there has been, and that's going to be equal to the volume of your body. How much the water rise from its initial condition? It rose this much. That must be the volume of your body. Anyways, this happened to him, and he realized everything at once. He had a flash of brilliance. He had a light bulb eureka moment, and at this moment, he leapt out of the tub and ran naked through the streets, shouting, "Eureka," which means, "I found it." And then he went and he told the king all about it, and the king said, "Archimedes, thank you. Now put some clothes on." Anyways, all jokes aside, it is now time for us to take our first break, but don't go away. We'll be back with more after this.
Sadly, this eureka moment probably never occurred, since it would have been easier to use an accurate scale, which already existed. Archimedes did discover the law of buoyancy, also called the Archimedes principle. The bathtub story, however, surfaced 200 years later and is likely untrue. Even so, the word has been used ever since to describe a light bulb moment, a sudden realization or accidental discovery.
第二部分我们看到名词 realization， 指领悟或认识、意识。举例来说， The realization that the boat was sinking came too late for it to be saved. 等意识到船正在下沉的时候，已经太慢，导致来不及拯救了。另外 realization 的动词为 realize， R-E-A-L-I-Z-E， realize 指实现或意识到。我们可以说 Craig finally realized his dream of earning his pilot's license. Craig 终于实现梦想，取得飞行员执照。或是 After Judy closed the car door, she realized that her purse was still inside. Judy 把车门关上后，意识到她的皮包还在里面。
Okay, so again, today we're talking about famous light bulb moments in science. Eureka, I have found it. So first of all, in the first part of today's lesson, we mentioned the example of Archimedes. We've all heard this story before. He took a bath and he noticed that the water level rose. So he thought he had discovered how to measure the volume of an object of any shape. And the story goes that he jumped out of the bathtub because he was so excited and yelled, "Eureka!" and ran naked through the streets. Which I think is probably not surprising because back at that time, they probably weren't ashamed of nudity at all. Nowadays, we are ashamed of our bodies, so maybe that would seem like a shocking story to us now, but back then it was probably perfectly natural.
This is all a really great story. He jumped into the tub and realized the water rose and there was a certain level of displacement, and that amount of displacement was equal to his bodily volume. Fantastic, and then it's cute that he jumps out and he's naked and he's running around talking about his discovery. It's a great story, right? Well, sadly, this eureka moment probably never occurred, since it would have been easier to use an accurate scale, which already existed. So, you know what? It's a great story, but it's probably not true. It probably didn't happen in this way.
Right, of course, a scale is a scientific instrument that you use to measure your weight. If you want to measure how heavy you are, you simply step on the scale and it will tell you how heavy you are. The scale already existed then. I think they probably used some kind of balance or something where you put weights on one side and then you can figure out how heavy you are, and that all has to do with volume and stuff like that.
Well, there you go. The relationship that we're talking about between mass and volume, that's density. And that's what Archimedes got to the bottom of, okay? You can know if something is pure gold if you know its volume and you know the density of gold. You put that all together and then you solve the king's problem there in ancient Greece at that time. That's the main idea here. But yes, they had a lot of stuff. They already had accurate scales. Once the displacement and the volume problem were solved and you figured out what density was, you were all set. One way or another, Archimedes did all of these things, but did he jump out of the tub and run around naked? Probably not. Anyways, yes, Archimedes did discover the law of buoyancy, also called the Archimedes principle. But like I said, the bathtub story is probably not true. The bathtub story, however, surfaced 200 years later and is likely untrue.
It's probably not true, just like the story of George Washington chopping down the cherry tree. Most historians agree that that probably did not happen. People made it up later when they wanted to make George Washington look like a great hero or something. It's just totally fictional. Just like this, the story appeared or surfaced 200 years later and probably isn't true. Even so, the word has been used ever since to describe a light bulb moment, a sudden realization, or accidental discovery. And the word, of course, we're referring to here is eureka. Most of us probably agree that this story didn't happen, but we still have the word eureka from ancient Greece, which means I've found it. So you might hear people using it in everyday conversation. Eureka! I've suddenly realized something. And it's been used ever since. It's been used since that time up to the present, and we use it to describe what we're calling a light bulb moment. When that light bulb lights up above our head, when we suddenly realize something that we didn't realize before. That's what a realization is here. When you realize something or when you know something is true that you didn't know about before, and we also use it to talk about an accidental discovery.
There you go. Here we've got the adjective accidental. The word accidental describes something that happens by chance. Okay, you didn't mean for that thing to happen. It just kind of happened. It happened accidentally, or you can say it's an accidental thing, discovery, so on and so forth. Yes, accidental is the adjective. It comes from the noun accident. Okay, an accident, okay, is something that you did not plan for. An accident is something that happens unexpectedly. You could say, I'm sorry, that was totally accidental. I didn't mean to do that. All right, folks, with that, it's time for us to take a break, but don't go away. When we come back, we'll be wrapping up part 1 of our article on Eureka Moments.
Like the tale of Archimedes, many accounts of Eureka moments are more fantasy than faithful truth. You may envision Isaac Newton getting hit on the head with an apple, for instance. Newton himself said he came up with his concept of gravity after watching an apple fall from a tree in his garden. But fortunately for Newton, the flash of inspiration was not the result of the apple landing on his head.
第三部分我们看到片语 more A than B， 这个片语用来描述某人事物比较像 A 而非 B。A、B 词性需相同，若为单数可数名词时，通常会写作 more of A than B。举例来说 No matter what the title is, the film is more of a comedy than a horror film. 不管片名是什么，这部影片都比较像是喜剧片而不是恐怖片。或者说Joshua felt the sauce was more tangy than sweet. Joshua 觉得这个酱比较辛酸辣而非甜的。接着我们看到动词 envision， 指想象、预想，像是 Holly never envisioned that she would become a millionaire. Holly 不曾想过自己会成为百万富翁。再来我们看到一个单字 gravity， 这个字为名词，指重力或万有引力。例如I will now demonstrate the phenomenon of gravity by dropping this pen onto the floor. 我现在就要把这支笔扔到地上，以证明地心引力现象。而这个字还有另一个意思，指严重性或危险性或重大。我们可以说 Charlie didn't think of the gravity before he took the risk. Charlie 在冒险之前没有想到事情的严重性。最后我们看到名词 inspiration， 指灵感，突然想出的好主意或给予灵感的人事物之意。所以可以说 My first manager was an inspiration to me. I'll never forget her. 我的第一位主管给了我很多启发，我永远都不会忘记他。另外补充 inspiration 相关的片语，可以用 a flash of inspiration 来表示突然一阵灵感，像是 Helen got a flash of inspiration while she was reading Shakespeare. Helen 在阅读莎士比亚时突然得到一阵灵感。
Okay, let's move on now to the third and final portion of our lesson for today. It begins by saying, like the tale of Archimedes, many accounts of Eureka moments are more fantasy than faithful truth. So there are lots of other stories just like the Eureka story that a lot of people have heard, but they probably aren't true. That's why we're saying they're more fantasy than faithful truth. Fantasy just means it's made up, it's fictional, it's not true. Fantasy. You're living in a fantasy world. You're not being realistic. We could say, for example, you need to start being more realistic and stop thinking of things in terms of fantasy. But, of course, we're talking about these accounts. A count here is not like a bunch of numbers in a ledger or something like that. In this particular case, it just refers to your version of a story, how you see something, or just simply put, it's a story. Many of these stories or many of these accounts are probably made up. They're fictional and they're not faithful truth.
There you go. Many of these accounts of Eureka moments are more fantasy than faithful truth. That is, there might be some truth to some of these stories, but in reality, these are stories and they're probably not true. As the case with the Archimedes story there, the better part of this story is going to be fiction and not fact, okay? Yes, for the most part, these stories are more fantasy than faithful truth. They're probably made up and fictional. Okay, they might even be dreamlike in some situations. They're not going to be faithful truth. Now, as for this word faithful, if something is faithful, it's not doubtable. It can be relied upon, like truth. Faithful truth. If you know something is true, you can count on that thing to stay true. You can rely upon the truth of that thing. Anyways, let's talk about another famous Eureka moment when Newton apparently discovered gravity. The apple fell on his head. Yes, you may envision Isaac Newton getting hit on the head with an apple, for instance. Newton himself said he came up with his concept of gravity after watching an apple fall from a tree in his garden. But did that apple fall on his head and provide him with his Eureka moment, his breakthrough insight? No, yes, fortunately. But fortunately for Newton, the The flash of inspiration was not the result of the apple landing on his head. Who knows? If that apple had fallen on his head, it could have broken his skull or given him a concussion, and we wouldn't have that brilliant scientific mind of Sir Isaac Newton that provided us with so many scientific breakthroughs. Yes, fortunately for us, this did not happen. Luckily for us, this did not occur.
Kind of depends on how big the apple was and how high up in the tree it was when it fell. But again, it's probably not true. It's probably fantasy here that the apple actually hit him on the head, although he did say he saw an apple fall from a tree in his garden, but it's probably not true that it hit him on the head. People made that up later just to dramatize the story. So fortunately for him, it was good for him that the apple did not land on his head, and that was the flash of inspiration when he saw that apple fall from a tree. He could have seen other things fall, like a rock from a cliff or something, or a bird falling out of the sky because somebody shot it or something like that. No, it's when he saw that apple. And of course, we all love to eat apples, especially when they're crisp and juicy. He was probably hungry at the time, and that probably gave him the inspiration. Inspiration is when you get some ideas in your mind, especially because you've seen something or you heard something. For example, maybe if you travel to Greece or something, you might get inspiration to become an artist. Oh my goodness, things are so beautiful there. I'd really like to learn how to paint these ancient Roman cathedrals and things like that. I would like to be a painter. I've got some inspiration. I've got some ideas. And so he got this inspiration for his theory of gravity because he saw that apple falling out of a tree.
This inspired him. It filled him with creativity. It filled him with this great idea and insight that had to do with gravity. The rest is history. All right, folks, with that, it is time for you guys to hear from the Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始提到，希腊数学家阿基米德是在洗澡的时候发现测量物体体积的方法。那读到课文第一部分的第3句， Archimedes realized he had discovered how to measure the volume of an object of any shape. 阿基米德意识到自己刚发现了如何测量任何形状的物体体积。那么 volume 在这边它就是指体积或是容积。另外句子里面这个 how to measure the volume of an object of any shape， 它是由疑问词 how 加上不定词，也就是 to 加原形动词形成的名词片语，用来当作动词 discover 的受词。那我们这边就来介绍 WH 疑问词加不定词的用法。好， WH 疑问词像是 what, when, where, who, which, how 等等，之后可以接 to 加原形动词来形成名词片语，这时候它就相当于 WH 疑问词加主词加助动词加动词。那这个名词片语呢，在句子里面可以当主词、当受词或是当主词补语用。举例来说 I don't know what to say，这就相当于 I don't know what I should say， 我不知道该说什么。那句子里面的名词片语 what to say 就是用来当动词 know 的受词。再造一个例句 Where to hold the event is still not decided， 要在哪里举办活动还没有决定。那么例句里面这个名词片语 Where to hold the event 是当主词用，后面搭配单数动词 is。好，课文提到说阿基米德确实发现了浮力定律，不过那个关于他泡澡浴缸的故事是200年后才出现的，所以很有可能不是真的。读到课文第2部分的最后一句 Even so, the word has been used ever since to describe a light bulb moment, a sudden realization or accidental discovery. 即使如此，这个字也就是阿基米德他裸奔大喊的那个字 Eureka， 从此就被用来形容灵光一现，就是指恍然大悟或者是意外的发现。那么句子里面的 ever since 它表示从此以后或者是从那时到现在，通常都会搭配完成式一起用。那么 since 在这边它是当时间副词，然后 ever 是做强调用。 举例来说 Sarah moved to Canada 10 years ago and has lived there ever since. Sarah 10年前搬去加拿大，从那时候到现在，她一直都住在那里。好，另外 ever since 也可以当连接词，然后后面接子句，它用法就跟 since 的当连接词的用法是一样的。那搭配的主要子句通常也都是用完成式。例如 She has wanted to be a singer ever since she was a child. 她从小就一直想要当歌手。好，那么以上是这些重点整理，我们来回顾今天的单字吧。
Accidental.Some car insurance plans also cover accidental damage, such as that caused by a tree falling on your car.
Fantasy. Though Mary's parents think her plans to become a film director are pure fantasy, she is determined to prove them wrong. Faithful. The movie is a faithful retelling of the man's life. Gravity. Earth's gravity is what keeps the atmosphere around our planet. Fortunately.The restaurant did not accept credit cards, but Dave had fortunately remembered to bring cash. Inspiration. Some writers carry a notebook everywhere in case they get a sudden inspiration and want to write it down immediately.
Okay, everyone. With that, today's article is now complete. But, as always,We sure hope that you guys have enjoyed reading along with us. Anyways, I'm Jeff.
I am Roger.
See you next time.